Coming up on the next edition of Power and Politics, the race for the White House now in the home stretch. So how close will it be, and who has the momentum heading into November? And a judge says Governor DeSantis was way out of line when he threatened TV stations for running ads against one of the most hotly contested amendments on this November's ballot. Hello and welcome to another edition of Power and Politics. I'm your host, Frank Cipolla. Power and Politics is a weekly, right-down-the-middle look at the top stories affecting the state, with a special emphasis on the psychology behind the decisions and issues that affect our lives. As you know, many Floridians are still recovering from the effects of two major hurricanes that hit the state this month. Among those affected, my co-host, clinical and Emmy Award-winning political psychologist, Dr. Bart Rossi, who joins us this week, not in studio, but rather remotely, with a promise he'll be back in studio next week. Doctor, welcome.
Great to be here, Frank.
Well, we are less than a week and a half from Election Day 2024, and the polls say it is a tight race. So, Doctor, your take on where we are less than 2 weeks to go.
Well, Frank, I think the interesting psychology here today is what is really measurable. We have all those polls out there, and I know you've said this many times, you don't particularly trust the polls. I happen to agree with you. But in this case, with this election, I don't think you can measure the intensity or the dynamics on either side. In the past, we know that Trump has been underpolling. Well, is that going to be true now? Is it Harris that may be underpolling, meaning that, of course, more voters would come out for them that are measurable? I think there are too many ifs and maybes right now to predict what's going to happen. And what about people who may not vote? We don't know how many will not vote and then how many have just registered to vote. So there's too many questions right now, except that it looks like it's a tight race, but it could break substantially for one candidate or the other. So I don't think it's measurable.
We also have to take into account that how many people are actually being truthful. I might be as an example, somebody might be a real Trump supporter. Somebody might be a real supporter of Kamala Harris. And they want to keep that private. Let's face it, we come from a time, Doctor, when you didn't talk about politics or religion in polite company, and now that's all anybody wants to talk about. But maybe in this particular case, they're just being private about it and saying what people want to hear. So how accurate is it really?
You're right, because and remember, we have one candidate, Donald Trump, who's projecting himself as the authoritarian. We have the other candidate on the other side who's projecting just the opposite. There may be people who are kind of hiding their vote. So we don't know until the actual polling takes place. And I think you're right.
I know this sounds like a cliche, but the only vote that really counts is how we vote Election Day. So with a week and a half out, the polls could change again. So we'll just have to see. All right, let's discuss what else is happening. There's been a lot of talk, and I know, Doctor, you and I have talked about it privately, about the Electoral College and how we elect presidents. In a nutshell, each state is designated a number of electors based on the state's population, with those electors doing the voting in Congress by each state after our votes, the general public's votes, are cast in the general election. This is an issue we have touched on privately. I like to talk about it on camera as well. You think the Electoral College created by our founding fathers is not workable anymore?
I don't think it's workable anymore because I think the founding fathers had a pretty good idea way back then because they felt that perhaps a cult leader or a specific religious person might get all of the votes in one or two states, and that the magnitude of that vote would overwhelm the rest of the country. And they were worried about something odd or bizarre happening, so democracy really wouldn't prevail, especially, I think, Alexander Hamilton. Very concerned about what would happen if there was some kind of unusual leader, some kind of occultist type. So I understand the reasoning going back, but right now it could be troubling. For example, what happens if Texas or Florida flips blue? Okay, let's just say things turn. Well, Republicans wouldn't have a chance going forward in any national election. Or conversely, what would happen if New York or California turned from blue to red? What would happen then? It just seems that one party could be knocked out of the ball game and the popular vote would be there, but many, many millions of people would vote for one candidate but that candidate would not be the winner. It doesn't make sense anymore. It seems to be that it should be, on a popular vote.
All right. Okay. Time now for one of our regular segments, a commentary from Dr. Bart Rossi that we call the Rossi Rant.
And Frank, this week I'd really like to talk about what's going to make the difference in this race. And I believe it's going to be coming down to what's believable, believability. Okay. And what I mean by that is some of these folks who we don't know exactly where they're voting, what they're doing, if they're going to vote, as we just said, they have to understand in their mind, what do they believe in? Which candidate represents them and what is actually believable? One candidate, the authoritarian, the boss, the guy that wants to be the tough person in charge, perhaps even a dictator in some way, shape, or form, versus the other candidate who's reaching out to all of the people and trying to present herself as a person for everyone. Okay, who's presenting, though, as the believable candidate who's saying things that make sense? And which candidate is honest and looking forward to the future and what we all want to do in terms of the future? I think that this is going to come down to in the final days to who is the most believable candidate.
And we are nearing those final days. Thank you, Doctor. All right, coming up, it's the First Amendment, stupid. That's what a federal judge has told Governor DeSantis. We'll take a closer look into why the governor had to be reminded of that when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back to Power and Politics. I'm Frank Cipolla, joined remotely this week because of the effects of Hurricane Milton by clinical and political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. Well, a federal judge has scolded Governor DeSantis for threatening television stations with criminal charges if they did not stop showing ads in favor of the Abortion Rights Amendment, which is on the ballot this November. The judge overruled the move, writing plainly, in the judge's words, it's the First Amendment, stupid. Doctor, Governor DeSantis had to know that he couldn't win this battle. Why do you do this? For what reason?
Maybe he thought he could buy enough time and minimize and marginalize those ads. But Frank, as we have said many times, Florida is supposed to be the freedom state. But apparently on this abortion issue, these politicians in charge, including the governor, don't want the people to vote. So if they don't want the people to really vote, now they're even trying to change the ads on TV. I mean, it's almost like an anti-freedom approach to democracy, if you will. And I mean, the judge just really slapped down the governor on this one. And I think it's very telling.
We should mention that the attorney who was ordered to file this request has since left the administration in protest. So even he probably knew as he was writing it on the direction of Governor DeSantis that this was in no way going to fly. And I agree with you 100%. Listen, the governor loves the Second Amendment. God bless him. A lot of people do in this state. But there's one amendment that's even before the Second Amendment, and that's the right to free speech. And TV stations can run. Listen, if political ads were all false, none of the ads would be on television because there's a lot of stretching of the facts in these commercials. And that's the way politics works. But trying to say you can't run it at all, that's over it's over the line.
It seems like this is a march towards more extremism by the governor in this case. And again, the judge really pushed back on him. And I think people are looking at that.
Okay, also making news in the state this week, there are a half dozen amendments on the state ballot this November, as you know, and over the last few weeks, we have been looking more closely at each one. Now, this show, we wrap things up with a look at the last two amendments. First Amendment 5, which, if passed, would adjust yearly tax bills for homeowners and, in turn, save them money. Now, this sounds like an easy yes, but the question is, if homeowners save some money, where does the missing money come from then to keep towns and cities afloat? Doctor, your thoughts on this particular amendment?
I think this is an amendment that's quite bizarre in a lot of ways. I'm not sure people really understand it when you read it. It seems like it's strange. Are the taxpayers really saving money, as you say? I guess they are. So many people should vote for it. But it seems confusing on face validity here, as psychologists say. It just seems to be questionable to me. I guess that many people will vote for it because they think it will save them money. Maybe that's a good thing. But to your point, it seems like it's a push for politicians to say that, hey, we're doing something about your taxes. But in the meantime, it's kind of hard to get your hands or your arms around this whole thing.
Yeah, you know, somebody posted something on my community page, the Facebook page in the community I live, and said, hey, this is an easy one. Let's vote yes on it. And I said, you know, it's pretty much a whack-a-mole. I mean, if the homeowners get a little break, the city or town still needs X amount of dollars, so it has to come from somewhere else. So, yeah, you're not paying it in your tax bill, but it is coming out somewhere else. Otherwise, the town and city can't operate.
Yeah, I think it's a move by politicians to say, hey, we're doing something on your taxes. And I'm not sure a lot of people make sense of the whole thing, to be quite honest about it.
Oh, good point. Now on to Amendment 6 as we continue this. As you may or may not know, Florida is one of 12 states that offers public financing for political campaigns. If approved, Amendment 6 would end the financing system for statewide candidates, that public financing system. Some say the system is outdated and the public financing that it provides is just a little compared to what it costs to run a real election, a real campaign. Should we continue public financing of campaigns in the state?
Well, Frank, I think it's a good idea to have public financing because it gives the little guy an opportunity, at least an opportunity to get started. He gets enough money to maybe have a start in politics, and maybe his campaign or her campaign can blossom, grow, and move into a substantial candidacy. So without it, I think people are really behind the eight ball. How do you really move forward and get into politics without having some support? So I do like it. Is it outdated? Perhaps in some ways it is, but I kind of like the opportunity for the little guy to get started in politics.
Yeah, and in a way, it's a loan as a head start for somebody who wants to get into politics, who may or may not have influential or powerful or friends with money. So I agree as well. It's not doing any harm at this point, so let's just keep doing it.
Yeah, I think that we need more people who are going to go into politics and have a sense that maybe their personality and their ideas can make a difference. And without some basic funding, it's kind of hard to initiate a campaign.
It's interesting. Again, it's Amendment 6, and it would continue the public financing that Florida has had for many, many years, and that's on your ballot as well this November. Okay, you know, the weather in Florida may be a bit cooler, but that doesn't mean there isn't a shower lurking somewhere. When we come back, we see who enjoyed the sunshine this week and who got caught in the rain with the always popular segment, Sunshine or Showers, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back to Power and Politics. As you know, the weather in Florida can be fickle. Some days it's a combination of everything: heat, humidity, sun, showers. So using that as a setup, it's time to decide who was in the sunshine this week and who got drenched in a segment we call Sunshine or Showers. We start with the sunshine. Doctor, who was in the sunshine this week?
Well, Frank, for sunshine and showers, I have an interesting situation here this week, okay? Now, in the sunshine, I have Governor DeSantis, because I think he really has done a very good job in working whatever he has to do after a hurricane. He seems to be the guy that's approaching the hurricane situation in a military manner, very detailed. He's informing everyone correctly as to what's going on. He's good at cleaning up and trying to make the best of the situation, getting everybody out there. He seems to be organized and right on target in terms of what to do post-hurricane. So I put him in the sunshine for his effort on what he's doing after this hurricane.
His management of post-Milton, Florida is commendable. So he's in the sunshine.
Yes, I think that he should be in the sunshine for that, and in previous storms as well.
Now it's time to,
and
for
how
you to
about
ask
you, Frank?
Now it's time for you to ask me.
And how about you? Do you have anybody interesting in the sunshine?
All right. Well, you know, I have the beautiful city of Naples, Florida. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but this month they started a water plan, a water remediation plan to prevent flooding of its popular beachfront and downtown area. Look, they understand that there's climate change, or whatever the case may be. They're installing 2 new huge pumps designed to reduce street flooding and water pollution, beach erosion, and so on and so forth. They have recognized the problem. They launched it last week, $11 million to start. It will be $86 million before it's done. But they're doing something about flooding in downtown Naples and along the beachfront. They're trying to remediate it. And you know, I give them kudos. They're in the sunshine. The city of Naples, Florida, in the sunshine this week for me.
Well, big sunshine. Yeah, I agree with you. Big sunshine, I think.
All right. And with every sunny day, as you know, Doctor, there are showers lurking everywhere. So who was in the showers for you this week?
Well, Frank, in the showers, again, I have Governor DeSantis. I have him in the sunshine and the showers this week.
A twofer this week.
I'm not sure that's ever happened for the governor, but this week it's happening because he's out there denying climate change. He says these storms, they just come and go and we deal with them. That's what we have to do. He's minimizing, marginalizing science. He doesn't want to believe in climate change, but believing in science and climate change is the truth, and it's a way forward. It's a way forward in dealing with what's coming. We're going to have bigger storms, stronger storms, wetter storms, and science is there today saying that, you know, climate change is here. The scientists can measure it by many, many different ways, and yet the governor is trying to deny climate change. So I think he's deserving the showers this week for that.
Well, he ordered, as you know, all state departments and any state law will not contain the words climate change. I guess if he figures it's not in there, it doesn't exist. But we know, of course, something is happening, obviously.
Very strange thinking. But who do you have now in the showers for this week? Who do you have?
Oh, who do I have, you're asking?
Yeah, who do you have?
I have the state of Florida in the showers this week, and I'll tell you why. Apparently, after Hurricane Milton, we found out there are absolutely no laws governing the placement of construction cranes in the state. And we saw what happened during Milton. A crane tipped over, crashed into a building in St. Petersburg. Luckily, no one was in there, but it destroyed a couple of businesses. Hey, cranes are dangerous. There should be some laws governing cranes. So I'm going to put the state of Florida in the showers this week.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Doctor, we're going to take a break. When we come back, a commentary by yours truly titled, Let's Be Frank, When Power and Politics Continues. Welcome back. As we race toward Election Day, a moment, if you will, to talk about something non-political. October is the month we celebrate Columbus Day. But in many states and cities nationwide, Christopher Columbus, who has been revered for decades, has become somewhat of a villain. His holiday replaced by Indigenous Peoples Day. I thought the transformation from Admiral of the Sea to Enemy of the People was interesting, so I looked into it. First of all, Columbus is, for many Italian Americans, an important historical figure. The designation of Columbus Day was made in 1892 by President Benjamin Harrison as an atonement to the Italian American community following the largest one-day lynching of Italian Americans in U.S. history. 11 Italian Americans were hanged in New Orleans by an angry mob for a crime they did not commit. In the 1940s, FDR made Columbus Day a federal holiday. About Christopher Columbus, we can say this. He was a man of his times. Like all prominent and powerful men, he wielded immense influence. He, like all men of the 15th century, was not perfect. He also did not arrive in a Garden of Eden. Slavery, unspeakable brutality, rape, and even cannibalism were being practiced by many, but not all, Native American tribes centuries before his arrival. He didn't deliberately bring disease to the New World, as the science behind how germs work was not known for another century. In fact, he actually tried to help Native Americans he encountered while also exploiting them on behalf of the Spanish crown. Here's the point. How in the world can you judge any 15th century man by 21st century standards? By that metric, all of our founding fathers should be canceled, as they were slaveholders. This review of the facts in no way diminishes the greatness and the contributions of our Native American friends. In fact, Italian Americans who honor Columbus have said for years Native Americans deserve their own national holiday so every ethnicity can celebrate their contributions and remember their suffering at the hands of the European settlers. Columbus united the continents. He wasn't perfect, but what historical figure is? I would ask respectfully to all of those listening to this commentary, why do we continue to mine history for fresh outrage? We need to focus instead on the present, as God knows there's plenty of outrage to be found right now. We'll be right back. That's it for this week's edition of Power and Politics. On behalf of my co-host, political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, who joined us this week remotely, and the fine people working behind the scenes, thanks for joining us. As always, we'd like to know what you think. Visit us at powerandpolitics.tv or email us at info@powerandpolitics.tv. We'll see you again a week from now at this time and on this same station. Have a great week.